Hey guys, Duncan McHenry here with Rocky Mountain Anglers. Today I'm going to show you how to tie a fly called the Biot Soft Hackle Emerger, originally created by Roy Palm as a tailwater emerger. Can be tied in a lot of different colors, usually as a mayfly, but it can also be a midge if you tie it kind of in a black and gray. It's a versatile fly. Like a lot of emergers, I find the fish will eat it down near the bottom when nymphing, but they'll also eat it when they're feeding mid-column or even up near the surface. So let's get going. Instead of the usual straight shank hook, I like to tie this with a Tiemco 2488. This one's going to be in a size 18. Usually a fly that you see in about an 18 to 22. That's what I tend to tie it in. And for the dubbing on this fly, we're going to do superfine dubbing in the blue dun color. The body on this fly is going to be goose biot in olive. And then the soft hackle, you can go different ways on the soft hackle on this one, but I like to use starling. Just a nice, nice bird with a lot of different sizes on it. So if you're tying this one in, like I said, down to a 22, you can find a really tiny little feather, but you can also get one that's fine for a 16, 18, whatever you're tying. So we'll go ahead and get started right up toward the eye on this one. And the first thing I usually do on one of these is just go ahead and build a thread base, just working your way to the back of the hook. Tying with 14-aught Vivus thread here in black. So it's a very thin thread. It's nice that, once you get to the front of the fly and you're doing stuff to finish, easy to not have it get too messy and crowded. And for the body on this emerger here, we're going to use goose biots. This is a little section that I kind of had cut in half, and I'm just sort of working from the middle on this. But I'm going to select one of these biots. And it might be a little tough to see on the camera, but you'll notice when I hold this biot up that I just pull off some of that fuzz. There's kind of a little foot that you see that down at the base, and it's not super obvious on this one I just plucked, but it kind of is going to face one direction or the other. And I've always found that when you tie the biot in to make a body, if you face that foot away from yourself, it's going to give you more of a ridged look that kind of creates some segmentation and even a little bit of it's kind of a feather ridge, I guess. It adds a little movement to the fly. So I'm going to come in here and I'm going to capture this biot at the very tip, right at the back. And I'm trying to really just get that tip and get a few wraps through it as I'm taking my thread back toward the front of the hook. And these can be a little brittle at the tip, so do just make sure you get a few good wraps through there. But you want to leave most of the biot because you're going to need that to build the body. So next I'm going to come in with my hackle pliers here. This is just a standard set of British style hackle pliers with a metal tip. Any pair of hackle pliers would work that you're comfortable with though. You can even use your hands if you want to do kind of the finger stop method, but with hackle pliers I'm going to grab that tip here and start wrapping it forward, and trying to have my first wrap be just right as much as I can right at the very back of the hook shank, and then try to dodge that point. I'm going to start to advance it forward, and you'll see that as I get this biot wrapping forward, being careful not to overlap it on itself too much because you kind of see that little feather ridge that goes in there. Once I'm up here at the front, I'm going to come in, capture that biot, kind of switch to my offhand, get a couple good wraps over it. And this is another part where the material can be a little brittle. It can try to kind of break out on you at the end there. So I like to kind of make a little bit of a gentler wrap to get established and then go ahead and lock down on it and make a couple tighter wraps. Then I'm going to come in here with my scissors and just carefully trim that right out of there. Then I'm going to lay just a little bit of a thread base down just to really lock that biot down, make sure I've got it in there nice. Take a look at it, looks pretty good. So now we'll get to the dubbing. I'm going to get my super fine dubbing here again in the blue dun color. This is a fly you could tie in a lot of different colors. Pretty much always going to be imitating an emerging mayfly, although you'll see this pretty much the same fly tied kind of in a black and gray to imitate a midge. So it's a versatile one. But I'm going to take just a little bit of my super fine. Oh, a little too fine there. A little more. This is one of those times where on a somewhat smaller fly like this, keep in mind that a little bit of dubbing goes a long way. So I don't want to get things bulked up too much because I've still got to do my soft hackle at the end. So I'm just going to come in here and lay in kind of a nice little dubbing ball, really a thorax right up at the front here. And that is pretty good there. You just want to kind of get it bulbous enough so that it's a little bit wider than the body, and I'm leaving a little bit of thread space to work with right up there at the eye. And then last step on the soft hackle emerger here is the soft hackle. So I'm gonna, again, I got my starling here. This is a whole starling bird, so I've got a lot of options and sizes, but I tend to, on any of these that I tie, I tend to be kind of down here toward the bottom, some of these smaller little gray feathers, kind of gray and black, just to show you this one that I just picked out here. And there's kind of two ways you could do the collar. Sometimes, depending on the feather, depending on the size of the fly, I'll strip the kind of fuzzier stuff off the base, the after shaft of the feather. For one like this, though, this one has some really nice little darker fibers up there at the tip of the feather. So I'm going to prep this from the tip by taking my hackle pliers here. I'm going to preen it back so that I get a little, what kind of ends up looking like a little triangle there. And that triangle is going to be my tie-in point. And it's always, take your time on this. It's a little bit delicate. But I'm going to do my best to just get a nice little, whenever the dubbing, a nice little tie-in point right where that tip is. Come in, I usually use my thumbnail or some fingernail to sort of poke that out of the way before you trim it out. Try to just sort of trim that out as nice as you can. And if you have a little bit of extra feather scruff right up there, you can clean it up with your thread, so don't worry too much about that. Come in with my hackle pliers, and I like to leave the base there, just so it's long enough that you can really grasp it. And then I'm taking that soft hackle around, and you can sort of just feel it out as you go. If you're feeling like it looks pretty good after just one wrap, you can go ahead and stop. I kind of got about 1.5 or 2 there, and I'm going to hold it, and I'm dropping my thread right through where I just made that collar and kind of behind the fuzzy part. And I tend to just do one wrap through, let it kind of seat down there nice and tight, and then I'm going to come in and trim out the base of the quill just as close as I can, and try to be careful not to trim out too much of the other stuff. So now here's the part on any soft hackle where you're going to kind of have it looking a little messy because you've just done the turn, you've trimmed out the base, but we still need to kind of do some work to clean things up here. So I'm going to come in with my thumb pointer finger and try to tease that soft hackle back as much as I can. Start kind of laying some wraps in to train it. And as soon as I get maybe 2 or 3 wraps and I start feeling like it's looking good, you can keep kind of pushing some of the scruff back with your thumbnail a bit. Come in and trim it a little bit more if you need to. But that's essentially it. And you can, again, here's where I like some fine thread, like a 14-aught, 16-aught, 12-aught, because you can come in and just build that little black head up a little bit at the front before you whip finish. Just tends to look good. And then I am just going to whip finish. Just a 2 or 3 turn there. And that is our Biot Soft Hackle Emerger by Roy Palm in the blue wing olive color.